This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Another very important show. A lot of things happening. I spent the last few weeks attending the Roger Stone trial in Washington, D.C. Just last Friday at about 12:30 p.m. He was convicted on 7 counts of perjury, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. And this comes in the wake at the same time as impeachment hearings on Capitol Hill concerning the president's so-called quid pro quo with the Ukrainian government to have the Bidens investigated. Now, let's just talk about that and get that out of the way really quickly. Obviously, these impeachment hearings are a sham. The president did a very dumb thing after he was cleared of Russian collusion and getting in bed with Giuliani, his lawyer, and trying to influence the government of the Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. The Bidens, they're nothing, really. I mean, yes, they should be prosecuted for their bribery and corruption, but the president should have stayed off because, frankly, Joe Biden was no threat to him. It's a little bit like Richard Nixon with George McGovern during Watergate. Nixon was up 30 points. He didn't need to have his people break into Watergate to get political espionage. And just like that, the president made a mistake because Biden's no threat. I don't think he'll even make it to the primary. He's in such bad health. Just last week he did a town hall and said he was running against 89 adversaries. I mean, he's gone mentally and physically. And I don't wish him any harm in terms of life and death, but I don't think he's long for this world. But let's talk about the Roger Stone trial, because this comes in the context of these impeachment hearings, which, frankly, are dangerous for the president in a way because clearly he's going to be impeached. Clearly there's going to be a trial in the Senate. Mitch McConnell, an establishment rhino Republican, says he's going to allow for a 6-week trial. And it's possible that enough Republicans will defect, stab the president in the back, and even convict him and remove him from office. Not likely, but it could happen. But here's the other thorn in the side. It's a person by the name of Roger J. Stone. I'm going to explain my experience with Roger Stone later on in this show. I've been relatively quiet about this because there's been a gag order on this trial. I represent Dr. Jerry Corsi, and Dr. Corsi, of course, was threatened by Robert Mueller with indictment if he didn't lie and implicate the president in Russian collusion. And Dr. Corsi, as I call him Jerry, did a very courageous thing. He says, no, I'm not going to plead out to 1 count of perjury, do no jail time, and then perjure myself to implicate the president. We got Dr. Corsi off the hook. He was never indicted. Now, he was subpoenaed as a witness by both the prosecution and defense. In this case, he didn't testify. I'm going to get into that later. And it was one of the mistakes that was made by the defense. But this is something that you need to understand about Roger Stone, is that Roger Stone has been the close advisor of Donald Trump for 40 years, was his lobbyist for the gaming industry, involved in many other things. And Stone's conviction just last Friday on 7 counts of perjury, obstruction of justice, and witness tampering, which he could get a maximum sentence for 50 years. The sentencing hearing is going to be held sometime the first week of February. This is a real problem for the president because, you see, the prosecutors may have been out to get the president and Stone for political reasons. Clearly they were. There's no question about it. But when someone commits a crime, when someone lies to Congress under oath, when someone says that, in fact, he doesn't have documents when he does and an investigation is underway, when someone says that he didn't have an intermediary in discussions with WikiLeaks and gives that impression and then won't tell the right name of the right person who actually was an alleged intermediary, and actually, the irony here is there were no intermediaries, but Stone just lied. And when you do other things, that violate the law, you deserve to be punished. Of course, people on the other side should be punished too, whether it's Comey, Clapper, Brennan, the Bidens, Obama himself. But what is really ironic here is that justice was done. And it's about time that this Justice Department did justice. Remember, it's the Trump Justice Department that actually prosecuted Stone. Isn't that ironic? Because the prosecutors, Aaron Zelinsky, an individual by the name of Kravis, I forget his name right now, and others, they're both very, very skilled prosecutors. There's another one named Miranda. I was sitting there. I watched the trial. And frankly, even though I don't agree with their politics, I had to say to them at the end, I said, as a former justice lawyer, I admire your competence and the way you tried this case. It was done professionally. And even the judge, Amy Berman Jackson, she bent over backwards, contrary to the attacks on her and the jury that occurred during this case. Stone uses his surrogates to attack people. He attacks them for political purposes, to try to get advantage. And in fact, Tucker Carlson, who's very close to Stone, trashed the jury just a couple days ago. This is actually jury tampering, and Tucker should be very worried about that because that's a crime in and of itself. But the fact is, it was a fair trial, and justice was done. Now, just last night, before this verdict was read by the jurors, at about 12:30 today, Alex Jones opened his big mouth again. I used to like Alex, but Stone used Alex to defame Dr. Corsi and me. He's never apologized. We've brought lawsuits. We've got one against him. We've got one against InfoWars. We've got 4 against Stone because Stone feared Corsi's testimony in this case, much like he feared what Randy Credico, the witness who he threatened, and he was convicted for that, suggested that he shouldn't testify falsely. He feared Corsi's testimony, and that's why he defamed Corsi. He tried to intimidate Corsi. That's why he went after his lawyer, Larry Klayman. That's why he had others file bar complaints against Larry Klayman for tactical purposes. In fact, it came up during trial that Stone had threatened Credico with filing a bar complaint against his closest friend and confidant, Margaret Kunstler, the wife of deceased liberal lawyer William Kunstler, if Credico didn't lie. You see, so this is Roger Stone. And this, frankly, is a blight. It's a black spot on the president. The prosecutors wove the president into an alleged conspiracy to lie in front of the House committee because what they did was there wasn't any direct testimony on that, but at periods of time when Stone was concocting stories or telling people that he had contacts with WikiLeaks when he may not have, and done other things that he later lied about and obstructed justice about, he was having telephone conversations in and around that time with the president. And, of course, the president claimed that he had fired Stone, that he was not part of the campaign, but that wasn't true. In fact, Stone's always been part of the 2016 campaign and thereafter. So the lesson for the president is stay away from people like this. Okay, maybe you had associations in the past, but now you're president of the United States. You don't need to hang around people like Roger Stone. You don't need their advice. You don't need to hang around people like Paul Manafort, Roger Stone's former partner at Black Manafort, Stone and Kelly, or Rick Gates, who was deputy campaign manager in 2016 under Manafort. Gates had worked for Stone and Manafort and that firm as well, Black Manafort, Stone and Kelly. See, this is something that you really need to understand, is that you are who you associate with. And if you don't associate with good, honest people, it's going to rub off on you. And I'm afraid that this conviction is going to have a negative impact on the president under these circumstances of when the witch hunt to try to impeach him is going forward in the House and later in the Senate. So the president needs to be very circumspect about how he comports himself into the future. And I love the president, and he's one of a kind. If he goes down, we all go down. And I'm doing everything I can to defend him. But I'm talking to him clearly because he has not had clear advice in the past, whether it's about appointing judges or whether it's about some other things. He has made a mistake to hang around people like Roger Stone, and he better not do it in the future because they're going to take him down. Now, let's talk about Stone's defense in this case. It was a pathetic defense. His lawyers were almost like the Three Stooges. I could not believe it. They were smiling during the trial. They were slapping the prosecutors on the back, shaking their hands. It looked like it just wasn't serious. And then to make matters worse, they didn't even present any witnesses. They just played 58 minutes of Stone's appearance before the House Intelligence Committee. And this is something that is very, very perplexing because, these lawyers obviously recommended to Stone that he waive his Speedy Trial Acts, which Stone did. Generally, you have to be tried within 60 days, but they waived it. They gave the government 9 months to prepare, and they weren't prepared at all. And I got to tell you something. If Stone has any defense at this point, it's ineffective assistance of counsel, which he should raise on appeal. And I'm not exactly in his court in terms of getting off the hook here. In fact, I think he should do the time. But the fact is that these lawyers were actually a joke, and everybody in the courthouse saw it. And how is it that Stone claims to have raised $2 million to pay for his legal defense fund, and he gets the Three Stooges to defend him? And I'm not talking about Mo, Curly, and Larry either, even though yours truly was in the courtroom. I'm talking about lawyers from South Florida who, frankly, were out of their league. They didn't know what they were doing, and it looked like they did little to no preparation. So this is something that needs to be addressed when people go out there and they raise money to try to defend themselves. If they're taking your money, they should at least take it and hire competent people to defend them. But it didn't happen here. But I'm going to be right back with the second segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. I'm going to tell you my history with Roger Stone and why I feel the way I do and why I'm warning the president nicely as a friend to stay away from Stone and people like that. If he's going to avoid impeachment and conviction, if he's going to go on and be successful, he needs to do it on his own. He doesn't need advice from people like this. So until that time, go to freedomwatchusa.org. Contribute to our cause. We are your private Justice Department. Remember, it was the Trump Justice Department that prosecuted Stone. We will prosecute everybody. We don't hold anybody back that violates the law. And that's why join our Justice League and go to freedomwatchusa.org. I'll be right back with the second segment, The Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman.
Dangerous.
You don't hear, use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special Prosecutor
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Let me tell you a little bit about my history with Roger Stone, and you can also see it and read it by getting my book, Whores, Why and How I Came to Fight the Establishment. I met Roger many, many years ago because at Black Manafort, Stone, and Kelly, he and some others were supporting Congressman Jack Kemp. I really liked Kemp. He was the first Republican, I thought, that could unite Republicans and conservatives after Ronald Reagan. He was a protege of Ronald Reagan. He was, of course, a quarterback, a very good quarterback of the Buffalo Bills, and he became congressman from the Buffalo area. Well, I got to know Kemp, and of course I got to know Stone, because Stone was the main guy that was trying to promote Kemp. And ironically, sitting on the Executive Finance Committee, and I was also in that committee, was Donald Trump, none other than Donald Trump. Fast forward. In 1996, Roger was alleged to have been involved in a swingers party. In fact, he was filmed at a swingers party in a toga with his then wife. And I represented Roger. We'd gotten to know each other over the years, and I got the media off his back. They were camped out in front of his house because he was the answer to Dick Morris. Dick Morris had been caught with a prostitute sucking her toe at the Jefferson Hotel, and Clinton had to fire him. It became too hot, the heat in the kitchen, notwithstanding Clinton's own sexual escapades. And, of course, when I ran my Senate campaign, as you'll see in my book, Roger was my campaign manager for a few weeks. He had been recommended to me by a mutual friend, Scott Reed, who was the chief of staff to Jack Kemp at the time. May Jack's soul rest in peace. He's since deceased. And I told Roger at the time, because, he does have a good political mind. I said, you cannot do any dirty tricks. You can't represent anyone else. You have to be exclusive to me. And sure enough, he went off, and he was two-timing me, representing, if you can believe this, Al Sharpton in his campaign in New York. In fact, that came out during the trial. Credico had actually recommended Stone, Credico being Stone's friend, and one of the so-called intermediaries to WikiLeaks that became part of this trial, so material. But I let Stone go after a few weeks because I could not work with somebody who was doing those kinds of things. And he brought a lot of his people into my campaign. They wound up leaving with my computers, my cell phones, and other things. I was out a couple $100,000 of my own money by the time I was done with Roger Stone. So I had a bad experience with Stone, and I think maybe he felt when I began to represent Dr. Corsi with regard to Mueller and the Russian witch hunt that somehow I had it in for him, and I didn't. I was simply representing Corsi. But Stone can't resist himself. He's always got to be on the attack. He's always got to smear people. He doesn't tell the truth. Now he's been convicted for that and could get 50 years for that and witness tampering, obstruction of justice. He's going to get something. I don't know if it'll be 50. But he feared Corsi. So therefore, he had to defame Corsi, and he felt that he had to defame me. And then he has surrogates file bar complaints against me, which take up a lot of time. They're frivolous, but I have to deal with them. And as I said, that was one method. He tried to intimidate and tamper with a witness that came out during this trial where he was convicted of witness tampering. And this is what you're dealing with here. And my moral to this story is that, justice applies to everybody. And we're going to make sure that justice does occur with regard to the Bidens, with our citizens' grand juries. We're going to try Mueller. We've already indicted him for witness tampering with Dr. Corsi. We're going to hold Obama accountable. We're going to hold Hillary accountable. We already have. We indicted her years ago for breaches of national security. Comey, McCabe, Strzok, Page, Orr. Everybody should be held accountable, but that does not exonerate Roger Stone. So when you hear people out there running interference for him, whether it's Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, whether it's Alex Jones, whether it's his friends down in South Florida who don't understand what's going on, take it with more than a grain of salt. It's simple nonsense, and you have to recognize that if we're going to keep the other people's house in order, the Democrats and the left, then we have to keep our own house in order. And that's why, good riddance to Roger Stone. Frankly, I hope he does time because he deserves to do time. And that's why a lot of people came into this trial, whether it was Bannon or whether it was Gates or whether it was Credico. He had made them enemies, and they wound up testifying against him because he had pulled similar tricks with them, and they didn't forget, and they came after him. Not that they're perfect people either, believe me. When I come back, I'm going to talk about my reaction to this, is what's been going on in terms of the Justice Department, in terms of our justice system, because it's very important for you to understand that we have a justice system that works. Here it worked, but now it needs to work against other people as well. And you can guarantee that with Freedom Watch and Larry Klayman, that's going to happen. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
There was an interesting dynamic during this trial, and that was Judge Amy Berman Jackson. I'm not a big fan of hers. She's someone who, in a prior case, dismissed my lawsuit against Hillary Clinton, which I brought for Charles Woods and Patricia Smith. Their sons, Sean Smith and Ty Woods, died at Benghazi. I had alleged, correctly, that Hillary's use of a private email server was hacked, which we know it was. That was admitted to by Comey. And as a result, the terrorists found their way to the ambassador, Ty Woods and Sean Smith, and killed them and killed others, murdered them. I had also sued Hillary Clinton on behalf of Charles Woods, the father of Ty Woods, and Patricia Smith, the mother of Sean Smith, for defamation, for calling my clients liars about the causes of the murders. Remember Hillary, some Muslims for a walk in the woods someday just decided to do this because they saw a video of Muhammad that they didn't like. Well, they knew otherwise, our clients, and they were called liars. In fact, they recorded it in a diary. Charles Wood recorded what Hillary said in a diary. The case was assigned to Amy Berman Jackson. On the eve of Memorial Day, she dismisses the case, really without cause. It was a phony dismissal. Now, you have to ask yourself the question, why would a federal judge dismiss a case upon the grieving Gold Star parents of fallen heroes of Benghazi on the eve of Memorial Day? And, it just blew my mind. And then I took the matter up to the D.C. Circuit Court, the appellate court, and we got 3 leftist judges, and they affirmed her decision. And we've talked last week and the week before about the politicization of our judiciary, how we have politicians in robes, and that's a problem right now. But in the context of this case, it was very interesting because Amy Berman Jackson, who has been under a lot of criticism for how tough she was on Paul Manafort and others, who was under criticism from me with regard to the Benghazi case and others in other cases. She doesn't like conservatives. She's pretty far left. She did make a special effort to at least create the appearance of impartiality. She bent over backwards for Stone. In fact, she complimented him and his lawyers. Frankly, they didn't deserve compliments. She even gratuitously tried to suggest that they weren't involved in some of the attacks on the juries that occurred by Tucker Carlson. Roger Stone writes or wrote for the Daily Caller. Tucker Carlson started the Daily Caller. I believe he still owns, some of the shares in that, or at least is part owner. And this is what Stone does. See, these are his dirty tricks. This is why he calls himself the preeminent dirty trickster. And to use somebody like Tucker to try to intimidate the jury, frankly, is very, very dangerous. It's inappropriate. But she went light on Stone, even though she obviously knew who was behind that. And it's something that the prosecutors knew was behind it. Now, one of the things about Amy Berman Jackson that she's been accused of doing was packing the jury. Yes, she took a view of who should be on the jury, which was, very broad. If a juror came in and said that I could be fair and impartial, didn't matter whether they had worked in the Obama administration or whether their husband worked for the criminal division of the Justice Department or whether they had friends, for instance, in the U.S. Attorney's Office. That juror, by the way, was stricken. She was never part of the jury. But it is true, it's technically true, that you can't strike jurors for cause. You can because you have 5 peremptory challenges that you can use for whatever reason on both sides. Each side has 5. You can strike them for whatever reason you want, and some of them were. But I've got to tell you, this was a District of Columbia jury, and you're going to get a lot of government people. You're going to get people on the left. 90% of the people that live in this city voted for Obama and voted for Hillary Clinton, may even be a higher percentage. So she didn't do anything wrong there either. But what really strikes me as strange is that Stone's lawyers, who I call the Three Stooges, never moved to change venue. They made no effort to get the case out of the District of Columbia, much less have the case tried quickly before the government could be prepared and put on a really strong case. And they had 9 months to do it, the government. Now, I don't know what the Three Stooge lawyers did during those 9 months because they had no defense. They were stumbling on, doing their questioning. They were rifling through documents. One of the lawyers, I don't want to use names. I'm not going to disparage people in public, but I got to be critical as a fellow lawyer. I mean, in the opening argument, he says, I think the evidence will show. Well, you better know what the evidence is show. If you're defending someone who's been charged with 7 felony counts, you think, and that's not even the half of it. So the case was fairly tried. And to the contrary, despite the incompetence of Stone's lawyers, the government's lawyers, so-called government, some of them were holdover Mueller prosecutors like Aaron Zelinsky, this fellow Kravis is a very smart guy, very excellent. They had 9 months to prepare. So when they put a witness on the stand, they not only asked him or her questions, they put court transcripts up there or hearing transcripts, and then they had audio. Sometimes they had video. They laced it in. It was entertaining. The jury was enthralled. It was easy to understand. They repeated themselves in terms of what they were trying to prove 2 or 3 times. Repetition. Advertising is good with repetition. And I have to say they did an excellent job. And, when this thing was over, even though, I don't condone, and in fact, I sued Mueller, and I brought criminal complaints at the Justice Department against Mueller and his prosecutorial staff. But I felt like sitting there as a former Justice Department lawyer, I felt some pride in the sense that there are competent people at the Justice Department. They do know how to try a case. You know, these were A-listers. I didn't always work with A-listers when I was there. I worked with sometimes a lot of people that just walked around kibitzing all day long and not doing much work. But, you know, the Justice Department can be the People's Justice Department, but it hasn't been. And the sad part is that as good as this prosecution was in terms of competence and quality of representation and focus and result, they ran the table, 7 felony convictions. Fact is that there are people out there who haven't been prosecuted that should be. And this is the Bill Barr Justice Department. He's no messiah, believe me. This was his Justice Department that prosecuted Stone but hasn't prosecuted anybody else on the other side. It's unbelievable. But to make the long story short, as the jury was deliberating, I went downstairs to get a little bite to eat, get some coffee, waiting for the verdict. And I saw the prosecutor sitting there, and I walked over to them and I said, look, we're of different political persuasion. I don't agree with what you guys believe in. But I got to tell you, as a former Justice Department lawyer, I did feel some pride, and I have to commend you on your competency and the way you tried this case as a fellow lawyer. And Kravis got up and said to me, Larry, I appreciate that. And I didn't do that to win friends and influence people. We'll lock horns again in other settings. I don't hold anything back, and I don't try to kiss anybody's behind. But this is what our Justice Department should be in terms of competency, but they should just prosecute everybody that deserves to be prosecuted, not leave them out. And that's what we seek to do at Freedom Watch, is that unlike my former group, Judicial Watch, which I founded in 1994, I say this a lot, but I want you to understand because, you know, we're little. We don't have a lot of resources. Judicial Watch has $110 million in net worth. I left them with $20 million when I left to run for the Senate in Florida. When you have money, you can use it to make money. You can do advertising. You can do all kinds of different things. And while it took them many years to figure out how to do it, they do make a lot of money, and they have a lot of money because they get documents. You know, you never lose a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. You're always going to get documents, and then you can crow like Fitton does and declare victory. Well, it's more than just getting documents. Once you get documents, you got to do something with the documents. You know, there was one time that I remember my grandmother saying to my grandfather, you got to do something when you get up on the dance floor. My grandfather was a great dancer, and he learned how to dance. And so was my grandmother. But you got to dance. And that's what we do at Freedom Watch. We dance. We dance with the criminals. We dance trying to bring about justice. We just don't sit there and go on Fox News and crow we got more documents or comment on impeachment proceedings. We're involved in the fray. I represented Jerry Corsi. We got Jerry off. He didn't get indicted. Roger Stone did get indicted. Jerry told the truth. Roger did not. And this is why you need to support Freedom Watch, because we have our citizens' grand juries. We're going to be bringing indictments against the Bidens after the beginning of the year. We're going to be trying Mueller. We're going to bring Comey. We're going to have him indicted as well. And we're going to indict the people in and around Comey, whether it's James Baker or whether it's Bruce Orr or whether it's McCabe or all of them. We're going to seek indictments of all of them because they have subverted the Constitution of the United States no less than Roger Stone did. So that's what I want you to understand, and that's why Freedom Watch does today what Judicial Watch used to do when I ran it. And you need to appreciate it. I can't reach out like Fitton does because we don't have the resources to do that. We need to hire more people. We need more paralegals. We need investigators. Our press department needs to get bigger so we can communicate, so we can educate the American people. We are the mouse that roared. I've had some issues in the years since I've left Judicial Watch. I don't make any bones about it. I get diverted a lot in different things. I've been fighting Judicial Watch all these years in court. I got a judgment against them for defamation. I've got other lawsuits and things like that. But this is not something that can, you need to be able to focus, and you need more people to bring about justice. So we need your help. So go to freedomwatchusa.org, contribute to our cause, because we are your Justice Department. Now, another thing, I have private clients. I have Cliven Bundy. He's now been persecuted again, this time by the Trump Justice Department. The president doesn't know what's going on. He's got so many problems. He doesn't know what they're doing over there. And frankly, the Attorney General Barr, he doesn't know what a lot of his people are doing either. They've threatened to impeach him. They've threatened to hold him in criminal contempt. So he's just treading water over there. The Bundys had their indictment dismissed and the people around them, the standoff. Yet it was the U.S. Attorney in Nevada, under the aegis of the Trump Justice Department, that took an appeal. We're going to have oral arguments in Las Vegas, Nevada, before the Ninth Circuit in March. You're invited to attend, but Cliven Bundy needs your support. Go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org, and contribute to his cause. And Dr. Corsi, he's not finished either. He's got cases. We have a case against Mueller. It's up on appeal right now for violating his constitutional rights. See, I don't hold back. I mean, I can compliment lawyers on their competency, but we're, fighting tooth and nail against them in court. So we need your support for that. So go to CorsiLegalDefenseFund.com, CorsiLegalDefenseFund.com, and donate, because we need your help. We have a broken justice system. It's clear. Whether it's the judges, whether it's the lawyers, whether it's the politicians in robes who are the judges and the federal bench, we've got to clean it up. But right now, we've got to do the best we can with what we have, because there is no justice. There's no equal justice. Yes, Roger Stone got justice. He got justice for what he deserved. But there are a lot of other people out there that deserve to get the same thing. And that's why. Support our citizens' grand jury. Support our hard-hitting cases. Go to freedomwatchusa.org. I have to do this because we do need the resources. We do need to ramp up. We do need to be your Justice Department. We need to try to do this to head off a revolution, because the way things are today, people are getting very agitated. They're getting very upset. If the president is impeached and convicted, all heck's going to break loose in the streets. I'm not going to advocate it. I'm going to try to prevent it. And that's why we need your help to get justice so that doesn't happen. And we're doing our best at Freedom Watch to be the de facto defense lawyers of President Trump. Because remember what his lawyers did. Giuliani was crowing that he got the president off the hook in Russian collusion, but then he stupidly goes over to the Ukraine and is now going to get the president impeached for his stupidity. And it was stupid to ask the Ukraine to help us against a political adversary, for Trump to do that right after he was cleared of Russian collusion. It's not a crime. It's not impeachable, but it was stupid. I'll be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, go to freedomwatchusa.org, go to ClivenBundyDefenseFund.org and CorsiLegalDefenseFund.com and contribute to these causes. I'll be right back with the verdict section of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. You need to hear what I have to say, because it's very, very important.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
Here's the verdict, ladies and gentlemen, fellow patriots. People like me who love this country and will risk all to save this country. We need to start talking to the president. We need to shake him up, because he doesn't need people around him like Roger Stone, Rudy Giuliani, Paul Manafort, Rick Gates, and a bunch of other people. He needs to get the best and the brightest. He needs to respect them. He needs to treat them well. He needs to be able to assemble a team that he can move this country forward. Now, he's done a great job already. The stock market's very high. We're on the verge of hopefully building the wall with regard to illegal immigration. He's had many, many other accomplishments. He's probably had more accomplishments than even Ronald Reagan had at this time in his presidency. And I love Ronald Reagan. Whenever I go to the Reagan Library, I tear over. But the one thing that bothers me about the president is who he hangs around with. And you are who you hang around with. It rubs off on you. And it's time that he turned another leaf. Now, I'm not saying that, he's perfect. He's certainly not. Nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. But you need to get better people. And that's really the verdict here with regard to Roger Stone. Because one thing was clear, is that Stone never ceased being his advisor. And as a result of that, as a result of the 7 felony convictions and crimes that Stone committed, it's now going to be used against the President of the United States. And this is happening during a time that is very, very fragile. It's happening during a time when, regardless of merit, and the President shouldn't be impeached, but he's going to be impeached. The Democrats are going to do it because they want to weaken him for the next election. And then it's going to go over to the Senate. And McConnell, the majority leader, says, I'm going to do 6 weeks on this. How do you do 6 weeks on this? Unless your ultimate goal is to stab the president in the back like Caesar was stabbed by Brutus in the Roman Senate. Let there be no mistake about it. The Republican establishment rhinos have always wanted to figuratively kill the President of the United States, Donald Trump. They want their guy in there. They want their establishment hack in there. They want another George W. Bush, an idiot, okay? Or they want somebody that they could just give orders to that'll carry out their desire to raise more money, stuff that money in their pocket, and acquire power. The Democrats are evil, but the Republicans are not much better because they don't do their job, and frankly, they subvert the Constitution because they don't do their job, and they just go on talk and go on Fox News and do little to else. We don't need more laws. I'm in Washington, D.C. this week. It's unbelievable the building that's happening in and around this city, the wealth. It's exploding all over the place. What do you need all these people for? We need power by the people. We need we the people to take action. And that's what we do at Freedom Watch because we are your Justice Department, and we need to rally around that. You need to join our Justice League. As I've said many times, you are the superheroes. You are Batman. You are Wonder Woman. You are the Flash. You are Aquaman. You are the hope of this country. You and your kids and grandkids, we need to educate them. So I want you to share this radio show, get it out there, have them go to freedomwatchusa.org, join our Justice League, get our free newsletters, support us, contribute with tax-deductible contributions, support the private legal defense funds of some of our clients who have their backs up against a wall, and really fight for this country peacefully and legally the way we can. We don't need to have a bloody revolution if we all band together. Because if we don't all band together, as Benjamin Franklin said, in other words, if we don't all hang together, we'll all hang separately. And that's the moral to the story. And I'm saying this because, I'm going up against the trend here. I'm telling it like it is with regard to Roger Stone. People want to paint him into something he's not. No. We don't need Roger Stones in the Republican Party, and we don't need Roger Stones in the Democrat Party. We need honest people running our government and being advisors. And that's why I'm preaching to you right now strongly, and that's why I've held this back, because I wasn't going to say anything while the trial was going on. I wasn't going to say anything before the verdict was reached. All I did was to bring lawsuits for Stone having defamed me and having defamed my client, Dr. Jerry Corsi. We did it quietly. I didn't publicize it. We did it because we have to do it, because you have to fight back when people try to harm you. And that's true now. We need to fight back because the politicians and some of the judges, either wittingly or unwillingly, are harming this country. And we need to change the way it is, peacefully and legally. So I'll be back next week with another edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Until then, God bless you, God bless your family, God bless America, and God save America. And thank you for listening.